Aduh.
Orang mah.
Reno di mana? Reno. Reno, Pak Reno.
Check. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the international webinar conducted by International Relations Office Cendana in collaboration with Charles Darwin University, Australia. First of all, I would like to thank everyone because taking time off your busy schedule to join us. My name is Rennie, and I will be the master of ceremony for today's webinar. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend a very special welcome to our keynote speakers today, who are here with us, Dr. Simon Moss from Charles Darwin University. Hi, Dr. Simon, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simon, for your time to join us today. I hope you are doing well in Darwin.
Thank you.
And also, I would like to welcome Dr. Bernard Antonius from Universitas Nusa Cendana.
Justru you harus pakai.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Tony, for your time to join us today and become the speaker.
Thank you.
I'd like to especially welcome our moderator today, Dr. Joseph Seranmau. Hi, Pak. How are you, Pak?
Hi, already. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be a moderator.
Thank you, Pak. You look great today. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for your time to be the moderator. And I would like to specially welcome the Head of International Relations Office, Dr. Maria Lobo. Hi, Ibu, how are you?
Hi. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Ibu. Nice to see you again on screen, Ibu. And I'd like
you.
to also welcome the representatives of Charles Darwin University and the representatives of International Relations Office of Charles Darwin University. I can see the face of Ibu Chita in here. Thank you very much, Ibu Chita, for joining us. I hope you are doing fine in Jakarta, Ibu.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu. I also would like to welcome the participant who comes from outside of Kupang or even from abroad that I couldn't mention one by one. I would like to say thank you very much for your interest for today's topic, and thank you very much for joining this webinar. In a moment, we are going to listen to the opening remark. However, I would like to remind several points regarding to the webinar today. First of all, can you please kindly turn off your video or microphone during the webinar? And the host will only turn on the video and also microphone of the speakers, moderator, and also the certain committee members. If you are suddenly disconnected from this platform, then please kindly join the session by tuning off those buttons. The question can only be directed to the chat room. So please drop your questions to the chat room during the session, and the moderator will try to cover the question as many as possible as the time allowed us to do so. And if we are unable to cover all the question, you also can email the speaker and ask them or send to your email. And please bear in mind that today's webinar is connected live to the YouTube of International Relations Office Undana YouTube channel. So you can share the link to your friend if your friend unable to make it to this platform. Let's pray that this webinar can run very smoothly, and it's going to be very informative and also useful for everyone in this platform. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Maria Lobo, the Head of International Relations Office, to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Reni. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we all are in good health despite this COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, I'd like to again give a very warm welcome to our respected keynote speakers, Dr. Simon Moss. Hello, Simon, again. And then Dr. Antonius Ola, we know it as Pak Tony. Simon is a Dean of the Graduate Studies Program in Charles Darwin University, and Pak Tony is our own from the Department of Chemistry, Faculty of Science and Engineering, the University of Nusa, Cendana. Thank you to both of you. I'd also like to welcome our distinguished guests and Undana officials and representatives from CDU, Mbak Cita, again from Jakarta. And we also have Camilla Dixon from International Office from CDU, and Joanne Crystal, the Director of International Office from CDU. I hope we have Karen also from the CDU Global. Thank you all for joining the webinar. And welcome to all the participants. I suppose we have about more than 100 people in this webinar. So thank you so much. So I hope you have a very enjoyable session today, and you can get some benefits from the webinar today. So I'd like to say it again that the webinar today is our third webinar of the International Office of Undana. The topic is about how to write persuasive research proposal for higher degree by research application, as well as how to publish international articles. This is actually the continuation of our first webinar. So that was about, we were talking about the application preparation for higher degree by research in our first webinar, where Simon was one of the keynote speakers. So we are here again to have Simon again. So thank you very much. For that reason, we have these respected keynote speakers. Simon, not just the Dean of the Postgraduate Studies in CDU, but he's also the author of many books and articles. As well as Pak Tony, he's actually not just a lecturer, but he's a very good reviewer and writer or authors of many articles in both national and international journals. So we are also grateful to have Dr. Joseph Seranmau as our moderator today. He's very well experienced in his research as well as in his publications, both nationally and internationally. So related to the topic today, I'd also once again to acknowledge and thank Dr. Simon Moss, because Simon proposed the idea of having research collaboration. Actually, Simon mentioned this idea of having research collaboration between Undana and CDU in our virtual meeting between the Undana's officials and CDU officials just last week. And I think the idea is very good, and I suppose our rector has approved the idea. So hopefully we'll have some collaborative research project that can get the potential or postgraduate students by research involved in the project, so they can benefit from the project because they get international exposure. Because we all know, to be admitted as a postgraduate students by research, it's really important to have international journal or international publication. That's why we're really happy or grateful to have these very good people in our seminar. They are good in their fields. To end my remark, I'd like to thank and acknowledge all the support the IRO has received from all parties, include Undanas, and then the support from CDU, and also support from all the other parties, especially thanks to LP3M, Pak Reynolds especially for being our host today, and to all the IRA staff who have dedicated their time to make this webinar run smoothly. And on behalf of all of us who present today, I'd like to officially open the webinar. And again, I wish you all a very enjoyable and fruitful session. Thank you, Ms. Rainey. Back to you. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Bu Maria, for officially opening the webinar today. It's a very wonderful speech. Moving along to our next session, we are going to listen to our two speakers today about their knowledge, expertise, and experience in respective to the topic, how to write a persuasive research proposal for higher degree by research applications, and to publish international articles. And in this session, it's going to be moderated by Dr. Joseph Seranmau. And Dr. Joseph, he is senior lecturer at Agrotechnology Department of Faculty of Agriculture of Universitas Nusa Cendana. And regarding to the topic today, I think he is the best person suited for becoming the moderator due to his humongous records of research, publications, conference, awards, and intellectual property rights, as well as his important positions in leading Undana's research centers since 2008 until now. He's also the editors for national and international journals and proceedings, as well as the reviewer of international journals indexed by Scopus Quartile 3 and Thomson or Web of Science. So this is a short description about Dr. Joseph Seran Mau. Now let us gladly welcome him.
Hello, thank you, Bernie. Thank you very much for the opportunity for me to lead this webinar session. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon for everybody, especially to our outstanding keynote speakers today, Dr. Simon Moss and Dr. Anthony Sola, and also all the participants. It is an honor for us, Undana, to have you all here in this webinar seminar on the topic of how to write a persuasive research proposal for high degree by research application and to publish international articles. As the IRO officer has mentioned that this webinar is intended to provide the participants with knowledge, key strategies, and skills on how to write a good research proposal and to publish the research findings in international journals. So this webinar is not only useful for those who are willing to apply for postgraduate studies by research, but also for those who are going to attract research funding support from various sources and also for academic career and development. Ladies and gentlemen, all the participants and keynote speakers, to write a persuasive research proposal and to publish the result in an international journals is not an easy task. It is not only laborious and time-consuming, but also it requires patience and skill. And the skills for writing a good research proposal and article for publication, it doesn't come by itself. We have to afford it. It can only be acquired through continuous learning and practice. So we have to practice, write, and write. So therefore, it is an invaluable opportunity for us that today, International Relations Office of Undana, in collaboration with Charles Darwin University, Australia, present us with two highly recognized experts in this field. That is Dr. Simon Moss and also Dr. Antonius Pola. So to make it short, please allow me to introduce the first keynote speaker, Dr. Simon. Hello, Dr. Simon.
Hello.
Dr. Simon, it's glad to have you here with us. So I just want to mention briefly again that Dr. Simon is from Charles Darwin University. He is now Dean of Graduate Studies and also an Associate Professor in Psychology. And it is not mentioned in the CV, but I should mention that Dr. Simon graduated from Monash University, doing his Bachelor in Honors and also PhD, and also moved to Charles Darwin University in 2014 as an Associate Professor. And his experience include a registered psychologist with interest in organizational psychology, and also a former co-founder of Zenith Professional Development. And in terms of research and publication, that is mostly related with our webinar this afternoon, Dr. Simon has been a recipient of many research grants from Australian Research Council and also National Health and Medical Research of Australia. So he is very capable of being a keynote speaker for us today. Dr. Simon has also published 10 books and 96 papers actually in Scopus Index Journal. And the articles and books primarily on how the policies and practices of organization and government affect the well-being, progress, and innovation of individuals. So an interesting book that have been published by Dr. Simon is The Negative Side of Positive Thinking. It is a very interesting topic. And also the book's entitled Where Should I Walk? And Emotional Intelligence, Journey to the Source. So, ladies and gentlemen, having known the outstanding capability of Dr. Simon Moss, so let us begin with his presentation, and we will have 30 minutes for Dr. Simon to present his presentation about writing research proposal and also publication in international journals. And after that, we are going to the next speaker, the next keynote speaker, Dr. Vaniola. So, Dr. Simon, your time is next for the next 30 minutes. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. Just to begin, I should mention that during this presentation, I'll be discussing how to develop a research questions, how to write persuasively, how to structure a research proposal, how to choose suitable research methods, and how to publish papers. Now, all of these topics might sound important, but they also sound very boring. So I'll try to make this presentation as sort of interesting and engaging as I possibly can, given the topic. So I'm just going to share the screen if that's okay. Hopefully this will work. Now, can you see the screen at all at this stage?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay. All right. So initially, as a first demonstration, I would like you to just close your eyes for a few seconds. And I want you to imagine yourself maybe 10 years in the future. And you've just received an award or like a prize. And you received this prize because you've solved a very important problem, maybe a problem in society or for your university. So you've solved a problem. And I want you to think about, what is this problem that you've solved? Now, the reason I've asked you to engage in this exercise, you can open your eyes now if you like, or you can keep them shut if you prefer, is that one of the best ways of trying to identify a suitable research question is to first think about, what are some of the problems you would really like to solve for your life, for your family, and for your society? And then maybe to blend or combine these problems, to identify one key important issue that you would like to address. And then to imagine what the future might be like if you had solved these problems. Because the research indicates that when we imagine our future, maybe 10 years in time, we tend to be a lot more creative. We think about issues and problems that are much more important to us and are much more original. And it's a good way of trying to identify the sorts of issues that you might want to address in research. Too many researchers, I think, just study something they know rather than study an issue that is very important to them, a problem they really want to solve. And secondly, after you've maybe identified a certain problem, the next task is just to read very quickly about some of the most interesting issues about this problem. Now, I should mention on this slide, I'm going to describe essentially the sorts of activities you should do in about 60 different, across about maybe 60 days, about 2 months, to create a research proposal. And on each slide, I'll have a little black bar you can see on the bottom, which specifies, at which day you should engage in this activity. So around days sort of 4, 5, or 6, after you've identified your problem, you should then try to locate websites that identify some of the most interesting and exciting papers about your topic of interest. So for example, there are some websites that often summarize the latest interesting findings, the findings that people really find quite fascinating. So for example, there's a website called Reddit, R-E-D-D-I-T, that sometimes can summarize some research. Or there's another website called Science Daily, which you might have heard about, that often summarizes the most interesting and fascinating research in different areas of science. Now, that's not necessarily the most scholarly research, but they're often the most interesting research that highlights recent advances that you should consider for your work. And then what I recommend is you skim, that is, you read very quickly many of these findings. You might read about 50 findings or so very, very quickly. And the reason is that some research indicates that when you read findings or lots of information very, very quickly, then you tend to think more creatively. Somehow just reading quickly and very skimming the work tends to activate a whole series of different ideas that can improve your creativity when you're developing your research project. And you should simply write down some very vague thoughts, ideas, or insights about the research you might want to undertake. And just listing many very vague thoughts can be useful when you're developing a research project later. And then maybe in days 8 to 10, you should start to examine the more scholarly literature on your topic. So you might use Google Scholar or some other scholarly database to identify articles that are relevant to your problem that you want to solve. And maybe at this early stage, you could collect about 50 or so articles that could be relevant. You might read the abstract, the summary, and then I would recommend you read about 5 topics in a lot of detail. So to give you an example, you might try to identify the 5 studies that seem to be the most interesting to you. So for example, in my area of psychology, I've recently found some really interesting findings that I'd like to use for future studies. So one of the findings I discovered that you might find interesting is the notion that if people shift their eyes very quickly from left to right, like I am now, for about a few minutes, they're much more likely to remember everything they heard just before that time. So if you just shift your eyes now very quickly and go like this, you'll find you're more likely to remember the words I'm saying. As another interesting finding, it's been shown that if you can see the space under someone's chin, then you're more likely to believe what they say. So it's just an interesting finding. And finally, as an interesting finding, if you clench, that is, close your left fist for about 2 minutes very tightly, you tend to reach better decisions. Now, so these are 3 interesting findings. They're not relevant necessarily to your work, but they're examples of situations where you try to identify interesting discoveries that could be relevant to your problem. And then the recommendation is you read those papers maybe twice, because people tend to learn a lot more when they read papers more than once, right? And so you keep this process going for a few days, collecting more information you could use for your research topic. All right. Now, before I mention the next point, what I'd like you to do is just look at the 5 playing cards on the screen now. You can see there's a King of Hearts, a 7 of Clubs, an Ace of Diamonds, and so forth. And I want you to choose one card, okay? So I want you, you don't have to tell me, but maybe write down the name of one of these cards. Now, an interesting fact is that when people complete this task, they often write down the same card. Not everyone, like some people will write down the King, some people the 7, but actually, interestingly, the majority of people, about 50%, write down the 4 of Hearts as their card. So if you write down the 4 of Hearts, you're in the majority. And if you didn't write down the 4 of Hearts, then you're special. Now, the reason I engaged in this exercise is to show that actually many people think they're special, but they're not. That is, they're not necessarily as original as they think. And the reason I'm saying this is not to make you feel bad, but just to highlight that when you're trying to engage in a research project, it's more important to actually try to extend and integrate other people's work rather than to be too original. When people try to be too original, they often, their work is not quite as sound and valid and respected as it would be. Instead, what I'd recommend to create your research project is to try to identify maybe your 3 or 4 favorite papers, like I mentioned before, and then try to blend, to combine the ideas of those papers, and then as well as add some of the other ideas or thoughts you had before. So most of your research project should really be just an extension or combination of your 2 or 3 papers that you really liked, as well as a few other ideas, but not trying to be too original. I think too many people try to strive to undertake work that is so unique that it's not as likely to be respected. And then after you've sort of maybe developed a possible project by just extending the work of others, you're now ready to write a research proposal. The problem is that even if you write very well, even if you're say, for example, if you're writing in English, even if your English is very good, or if you're writing Bahasa, even if that's very good, still many people don't really know the rules or principles on how to write very persuasively, effectively, and professionally. So even if their language skills are good, they don't necessarily write good research proposals. So how can you develop better skills in writing research proposals? Well, I've actually developed a program that you're welcome to use that enhances your skills in writing about research. And so here are a summary of some of the modules or activities you're supposed to undertake. So there's a particular web page, and here is the web link on the bottom. I'm happy to share these slides later, so you don't have to write the web slide now. I'll share that later. And if you open this web link, it'll generate this page, and then one by one, you can complete a variety of exercises to develop your capacity to write more effectively, persuasively, and professionally. So for example, when you open one of these sites, you'll get a page that might look something like this. And it's a whole sequence of about, maybe each page will be 5 to 10 exercises that you can complete that'll improve your capacity to write your work. So let me give you an example of some writing principles that could help. So what I'd like you to do now is to think about or read these 5 sentences and to identify some problems with these sentences. So the first sentence, for example, is, it has been shown that carrots improve intelligence. Now that sentence is fine, there's nothing wrong with it, it's grammatically correct, but how could it be improved? Which words do you think you might want to change? Is there a word that is not ideal? And you're welcome to write an answer in the chat box, but I'll tell you the answer now. And it's the word it. Whenever people use the word it, the sentence is not usually as convincing as it should be, because the word it is often quite vague or sometimes quite unnecessary. So a better sentence might have been that, researchers have shown that carrots improve intelligence, or the specific researchers, research like Maria has shown that carrots improve intelligence, for example. Or you can even just omit the phrase, it has been shown that. It could be just carrots improve intelligence, and you can include some citations. But the first principle to learn is that you want to avoid the word it as often as possible. So as a second example, you can see the sentence, this excites people who like carrots and rabbits. Is there anything wrong with this sentence? Is there something that doesn't quite feel right? Is there maybe a word that you would change or clarify? Well, the answer is that you should always include a noun, that is an object, after the word this. So you can see this sentence is vague. It says this excites, but it's not clear what that refers to. So it might be, this finding, this study, this information or something. This information excites people who like rabbits and carrots. This sentence is also ambiguous because it's not clear whether it's exciting people who like carrots and people who like rabbits, or whether it's just exciting rabbits and people who like carrots. There's something a bit ambiguous about the way it's written. So you need to be aware of these complications. So the third sentence is, people have more confidence after they eat carrots. This sentence is not a problem. It seems fine. But usually in many sentences, people use words like have or get or make or done. They're very simple verbs that actually generate lots of different meanings. So even the word have can mean possess, it could mean demonstrate or exhibit, it could mean lots of different words. And so really, rather than the word have, you want to be as specific as possible. You could say that people experience more confidence after they eat carrots. Just two more examples. So the fourth is, in terms of food to eat, you should eat carrots daily. Is there anything wrong with this sentence? Is there anything you might change about this sentence? Is there anything you might reduce? Well, the problem is that there's a lot of unnecessary words. You don't need to say in terms of foods to eat, right? It's obvious from the rest of the sentence, you should eat carrots daily. So often when you use a phrase like in terms of, or in relation to, or something like that, you can actually omit that phrase or delete that phrase altogether. And finally, there's a sentence, a number of studies show that carrots improve intelligence. Is there anything you would change about this sentence? Is there anything that's a bit vague? Any phrase that isn't ideal? Well, in this case, it's the phrase a number of. That's very vague. Does it mean many studies show that carrots improve intelligence, or just a few studies, or one study? So you want to be as specific as you can. Okay, it might be 10 studies showing that carrots improve intelligence, or if you're not sure of the exact number, you might write many studies have shown that carrots improve intelligence. So these are just some examples of a series of writing principles that you should learn or could learn to actually improve your writing in the future. And as the little black box on the bottom shows, you might need to spend many days, maybe from days 12 to 28 or something like that, to develop this skill. It's a skill that will take many days to develop, and indeed may take many months to develop, to a degree that's sufficient to write in a top paper for a very good journal. Okay. And so, as I say, if you want to develop those skills, I'd recommend you visit that program that I mentioned before, and it'll help you with a series of exercises that you can use to improve your writing. Okay. And so now you're probably ready to write your research proposal. So what should you include in a research proposal? Well, obviously, a research proposal initially usually begins with a description of a problem that you want to solve. It could be a problem in your life, or a problem in your organization, in your community, or in society more broadly. So regardless of your expertise, you really want to think about, what is the problem I want to solve? Now, sometimes it's not necessarily a practical problem. Sometimes it's more of a scholarly problem. That is, it might be some controversy in the literature, some uncertainty in the studies that hasn't been addressed that you would like to solve. So essentially, you want to identify the problem in society to solve, or the controversy in the literature that you want to address. But of course, you really want to highlight how important this problem is. Now, many problems that seem important to you are quite trivial to other people. So you really want to show how important this problem is. You might want to show that if this problem is solved, it'll address a whole lot of other issues as well. Or you might want to include some statistics and numbers to highlight the breadth of this problem. Maybe the cost that society will incur if we don't solve this problem, or the number of papers that have tried to address this issue, or some number or statistic that highlights the magnitude or the importance of this problem. Or you could relate this problem to your own life, or a story about you, so people really understand why this problem is important to you as well. And so once you've described the problem, you now need to highlight how you want to solve the problem. And to do that, you first need to try to summarize previous attempts and studies and research that have tried to solve a similar problem, and then the limitations or difficulties this research has uncovered. So you might, for example, highlight like some sort of theory or idea that was used to solve a problem, and then you might highlight some limitations of that theory or idea, maybe highlighting other research that has conflicted with this idea. And so all the time you're sort of talking about other attempts to solve the problem, and then the limitations of those attempts, then another attempt to solve that problem, the limitations of those theories or ideas, and so forth. So you're creating a cycle from trying to what's been done before and why it didn't work, including some sort of studies and literature along the way. And ideally, you're trying to end with the notion that other studies have failed to solve this problem, but your research is designed to overcome these limitations in some way. That's the ideal. It's hard to write this as perfectly, I'm saying. It's never going to be quite as good as you want it to be, but at least try to think about this as an ideal. Sorry, just go back one step. And so what you're trying to end with is why your research is unique. What sort of method or approach that you will take that resolves these problems from the past? Now, when you're writing this information, there's lots of different ideas, lots of different paragraphs. And it's important that, of course, each paragraph is very specific and just revolves around one very specific argument. But you need to make sure that these paragraphs are ordered in a very logical way, or these ideas or interventions or whatever are ordered in a logical way. So just to give you an example of ordering in a logical way, you can see here I've got a slide of 4 people, and you might recognize these people. Marilyn Monroe, Michael Jackson, Albert Einstein, and Barack Obama. And what I want you to do for a moment is just to think about the order of these. Just order these 4 photographs in your head. Who would go first? Who would go second? What sort of order would you use? There's no right or wrong. I just want you to see if you can find your own way of ordering or arranging these 4 photographs in some order. Okay? And I'll give you a minute to think about that. Now, there are many different ways you could order these people. You might order them from the first to be born to the last. So in this case, it might be Albert Einstein first. He was the oldest. He was the firstborn. Then Marilyn Monroe. Then I think Michael Jackson. I'm not sure. And then Barack Obama, or something like that. Okay. And indeed, people, when they often order their ideas, they often order chronologically, like in order. So you often order the arguments in terms of the research. You might talk about the older studies first, then the next old, and then the recent studies, and so forth. But you don't have to order in chronology, in this order of time. You might order in other ways. Sometimes people order from the simplest to the most complex. There's different ways of ordering, and some of the rules on writing I described before will talk about how to arrange these paragraphs ideally. And by the way, I think there was a question. So if someone wants to ask a question, I don't have the chat box open, so maybe someone can tell me any questions that arise, or we can leave questions till later. In this particular example, by the way, these photographs are already ordered in the right way, and that is, I've ordered them, interestingly, in height. So Marilyn Monroe was the shortest. Michael Jackson and Albert Einstein are both the same height. They were about 5'9", and Barack Obama was the tallest. But that's not relevant to our talk. Okay. And so then finally, you need to, in your research proposal, summarize the methodology or the methods you'll use to answer the research question and solve the problem you want to solve. And when you do that, if you want to impress people, you really want to specify very precise authors. So people might sometimes say something very broad, like they're going to use grounded theory to conduct their research. But instead, you should specify a particular author's work that you might follow. You might undertake grounded theory as described by the work of Professor Chalmers, in 1995, or whatever it might be. You want to be as precise as possible, so people really understand that you've taken a very specific method, and it's more likely to be trusted. And if possible, you should try to include a more advanced method as well. So let me give you some examples. So if you want to identify how to identify a more advanced and interesting or original research method, I'd recommend you travel to this particular page here. Okay, and I'll send you that link on the bottom later. And this is a page that has a whole lot of useful materials for developing your research. Okay? And there's a particular link on the sort of top left called choosing your research methodology and methods. Okay. And if you open this link, there's a whole series. This is just a small set. There's a set of about 50 to 100 different research methods that are summarized. And then there's a link that I've written that helps you learn about this research method. Now, of course, you won't have time to reach all of these research methods, but I might just summarize a few that you might find interesting. In fact, as I'm talking, you might want to look at these words, some of them are obvious, and just try to guess, what do you think this research method is? So you just have a look at the method and think, I wonder what that is, and maybe guess. So for example, what do you think story completion method is? Well, what that is, it's a very simple and interesting method that can be used to identify the way people think about, consider, and prioritize different issues. You know, what are the people's main priorities and thoughts about an issue? And the way it works is that you send to people, maybe on email or whatever, just a very short couple of sentences that are a beginning of a story. So for example, you might be interested in what people's main concerns are about, say, COVID-19, the pandemic. And you might start with a story like, Maria is sitting at home crying because of COVID-19. And then you ask the person to write about this story. And this very simple method is an interesting way of helping the researchers identify what people's main thoughts are, their priorities. Because often when they're writing a story, they can't help but write about the issues and the concerns that they're experiencing. So the second method is research with Twitter. So often now people are actually finding ways of analyzing the information that people use in Twitter to identify what the main sort of concerns and issues are. And there are various techniques that can be used to analyze tweets more systematically. Thirdly, what do you think systematic self-observation is? Well, it's hard to work it out from the name. What it is, it's a technique where you actually teach people to monitor their own life closely, to almost become researchers of their own life, to write about their own life, particular issues in their life. So for example, you might teach people how to monitor themselves and record information about themselves whenever they're feeling stressed. And so as soon as that arises, they're feeling stressed, they write about themselves, and then you can use that information to analyze data about some of the sources and experiences of stress or something like that. A fourth technique is called dyadic interviews. And that simply means that usually in interviews, we interview just one other person or sometimes many other people in a focus group. Whereas dyadic interviews are where we interview two people at the same time. And there's some research that suggests that this very simple method generates lots of benefits over just interviewing one person for a whole series of reasons that are discussed in a document on this topic, but I won't talk about now. And then appreciative inquiry is simply a technique when you're trying to learn how to solve a problem. You ask people to identify some of the best solutions and experiences in their past, and you find a way of integrating that to solve a future problem. Interpretive phonological analysis, which you might know, is a technique where you find ways of trying to really understand the experience of other people, how they experienced some event. So you might identify, interesting people who are often not interviewed or examined. They might be people who are not in a powerful position, or they might be people with an interesting dilemma or problem or disorder in their life, and you really want to understand their experiences, and this is probably one of the best techniques to undertake that. And finally, meta-ethnography is a way of combining many qualitative studies together to create an interesting insight. So these are just examples of 8 techniques, and these are mainly qualitative techniques. But if you go back to that page I mentioned before, there's probably about 50 other techniques you could read about, and also lots of different quantitative data analysis techniques as well. And you might just skim through this list to identify some techniques that you think could be relevant to your work. And if they are relevant, then you can read more about it on that website as well.
Excuse me, Dr. Simon, you have 3 minutes left.
3 minutes. Okay, that's perfect. Okay. And so finally, you need to discuss the logistics of your research proposal. So you need to write a little bit about the budget, how much money you might need, and some ethical issues. And to do that, again, you can visit this website I mentioned, and you might visit some work on budgets on the top here. You can see right on the top is something on budgets and so forth. Now, I know I'm sort of running out of time, but finally, what I want you to is to highlight, and unfortunately, this is supposed to be the main topic, but I won't spend too much time, is a little bit more about, well, how to publish. So once you've undertaken some research, then you might be ready to publish. And so in this section here on the website, will be a lot of information about, for example, how to write cover letters and how to identify appropriate journals and so forth. So it teaches you, for example, around a database called Journal Finder that identifies suitable journals for your work. It then helps you identify journals that you shouldn't publish with. There are some journals that are not real journals. They're not respected. They're called predatory publications. And they don't really evaluate research properly. And so you need to be able to ensure that you avoid those particular areas. Sometimes if you're not sure whether your paper is appropriate to journal, you can actually contact the editor. We have some information about how to do that. And there's some other information that you also need to take into account when actually publishing your work. But everything that you need to know, well, most of what you need to know is here. So just finally to finish off, I'd like to say that you're welcome to use this website, and I'll send you the slides later. And if you feel there's not enough information, if something is confusing to you and you'd like more information, then you're welcome to email me at any time, and I'll try to improve the information that's on this website. So I hope it's valuable to you, and it might sort of facilitate collaborations between CDU and Undana maybe in the future, as Maria mentioned. So thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing the slides now.
Thank you, Dr. Simon, for a very outstanding presentation, very comprehensive and clear. And we're also very happy that you not only provide us with your skills and useful strategies to write research proposal and also to publish the research finding, but you also are going to provide us with very useful links that you already mentioned before, that we are going to have your link, your website about writing modules, and also about research methodology, and also how to publish research finding in international journals. So we will be very happy if you can, at the end of this session, you will provide us with your website links, maybe also other materials that are related to the topic. So, Dr. Simon, there will be maybe some question that we ask the participant to put in the chat box, so you can go through it, but we will discuss it after
yes.
presentation from the two speakers. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Simon.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move to our next speaker. Please welcome Dr. Antonius Ola. So the speaker, Dr. Antonius from Chemistry Department, Faculty of Science Engineering, Universitas Cendana. Dr. Tony, I usually call it Pak Tony. Pak Tony is very dedicated lecturer, young lecturer at Undana, young scientist, but senior lecturer. He has a very outstanding records in terms of publication and also research. After finishing his PhD from Heinrich Heine University from Germany, Dr. Tony Ola was a postdoctoral fellow at Texas University Health Science Center in San Antonio, United States. And after that, he came back to continue his duty as a lecturer at Chemistry Department. And during the last few years, to my knowledge, Dr. Tony has been a recipient of many research grants, either from DICTI and also from various funding sources. And also, he has a very outstanding publication record. He has won many awards, either from DICTI and also from LDP. And also, he also won the second highest Scopus 8 index from Undana in 2008. And he also serves many community service activity, and also his research related to natural product chemistry, and that's what he is now focusing in research and publication in the last few years. So Dr. Tony Ola is very capable of being a keynote speaker for us today. So let's welcome Dr. Tony for his presentation. Dr. Tony.
Thank you, Dr. Yosef, for the nice introduction.
So your time is 30 minutes, Dr. Tony, and we will have a discussion after your presentation. So the time is yours, Dr. Tony, please.
So good afternoon, Dr. Simons. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
I hope you still have the energy for this last presentation.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to talk at this time about how to publish in international journal, and this including about how writing in English as a foreign languages, and also to talk about the structure manuscript from the article based on the Imbrat structure. So normally there are three things that the researcher or the scientist needs to do. The first one is to begin the research, the second one to end the research, and the third one to publish the research. And according to you, which one is the most difficult, the difficult ones? It's easy to start, it's easy to end it up, but it is difficult to publish the research. And why? Why scientists, why academic staff is difficult to publish the research? Because scientists are not trained to write, even though writing is a very critical step in science. Even very creative experiment and novel result will have not good impact if the manuscript is not written well. And why scientists need to publish their work? So there are several reasons why we have to publish our work. That's one for the benefits for the publics, and second one, the benefits for the research community, and also the benefits for the author itself. Or we can see here that the researcher needs to publish their work first because they want to communicate their research to the peers. And the second one, of course, for advancing their career. And the third one for personal prestige. And the fourth one for gain funding and also for financial reward. And for example, for advancing our career and gain funding in Indonesia, we need at least, for example, two articles has been indexed either in Scopus or in Web of Science. So here we already have two ranks of journal based on Scopus. We have SGR and also a Quartile, and we have also what we call impact factor. For example, Web of Science for a young lecturer or for the academic staff in Indonesia who wants to advance their career, they need to have these two publications at least. From the article having impact factor at least 1.0. So what is the impact factor? So impact factor actually the total number of citations received in the previous 2 years divided by the total number of articles published in those previous 2 years. For examples here. So the total citation in 2016 and 15 divided by the total numbers of the papers during the 2 years. And normally the high impact factor journals are the most important ones, and all scientists are trying to publish their work in the higher impact factor journals rather than in the lower one. And the second one, we have the ranking of journal based on the quartile. So we know as Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, where Q1 occupied by top 25% journal in the list, Q2 between 25 to 50, Q3 50 to 75, and Q4 70 to 1% of the list. And the most prestigious one is in the Q1. So we are always trying to publish in the Q1 journal. But how we can publish in those top journals? So at least we have to have at least a basic writing skill. What does it mean by a basic writing skill? For example, in writing the manuscript, it's good to put one idea in one paragraph, and this idea can be put in the 5 sentences also, or also in the last sentences of the paragraph. And the second one, especially for us Indonesian, we need to write short sentences. Don't write too long sentences. Later, it will make us difficult to translate in English. So we write a short sentences with easy words, not writing long sentences with difficult words. And then how we write? So normally we have to write constant. We have to write consistent throughout the manuscript. And normally we write with double line spacing with 12 font. And normally we can number the pages, and also we can number the lines. So for double spacing, we can choose the line spacing and double, and line numbers we can start from here. And then how long we should write? Normally a full article can be 25 to 30, but it can be shorter as well. But you can see here that abstract only probably 1 paragraph, introduction the most 2 pages, methods maybe 2 to 4 pages, result and discussion take the most part of the manuscript, around 12 pages. And writing the manuscript means that we're writing in English as a foreign language, and that's why we need to be aware of several things, including subject and verb. Make sure that every sentences have a subject, and then it should be correlate or correspond to the verb. So sometimes we have the singular subject and also the plural subject. And then the second one, we also again here avoid long sentences with many subsidiary clauses. Write short sentences with the easiest word. And the last one, and the other part is that we also need to be aware about the using of preposition like the and a, like the for the specific ones and a for the general one. For example, but you know, we already know that English prepositions sometimes have different meaning. For example, the whole year, along the year, we have to say it throughout the year. And then for this reason or not by this reason. And then the other things is that we need to take care on tenses. For example, when describing in the experiment part or in the method, we use the past tense. For example, velocity was measured with blah, blah, blah. While for general truth, we use the present tense. And for the result and for the recommendation for future work, then we need the future tense. This is we have to keep in mind when we're writing in abstract, in introduction, result, and discussion, or also in the conclusion. And then so here, like present tense, something like present tense is for the known fact. For example, the average price of honeybee is 6 weeks. And past tense, we use it for writing the methodology, the experiments, and also for describing the result. So when we describe the results and the methodology in our paper, we should use the past tense. And then when we're writing the manuscript, here is the general structure of the full article. The first one, we have title, other, abstract, and keywords. And normally this is known as the front page of the paper. And this is very important for searching. And we should use the Google-friendly words. And the main text, we call it IMRA, consisting of introduction, methods, result, and discussion. And also then we have acknowledgement, references, and then supporting information. And all of these have distinct function, and we need to differentiate which part we should put our specific information. And so the first, so when we should write this, our manuscript. So normally we have a logbook, and then we try to move all the information from logbook become as a manuscript as showing here. So normally there are several things that we want to write. Some people say, I need a window with an inspirational view, lake or beach to write. Or I'm going to stay in hotel, so can I have a good feeling to write? Or here at the end, I can only write when I'm happy. But I'm going to tell you that you have to try to write and write. Whenever you want to write, just write it. And so when we normally write, so normally we write first figures and table. And after that, we write methods, result, and discussion. And then conclusion and introduction. And the last one, we write abstract and title. So normally people write abstract and title first. But after you finish your manuscript, you always change the title and the manuscript. So keep writing the title and the abstract at the last part of your writing. So, and when we should write, so the methods and the result, making the tables and figure, we can write during the research. And we write the introduction and the discussion after we selecting the journal, after we know which journal we have to publish, and then we write following the guide of others for that journals. And the last one, we always write title and abstract. So title and abstract always we write at the last one. And so for the first one is title. The title here should be short and it contains should be the fewest word, but it should be effective and it should be adequate for the information that we are going to publish. So the good titles means that we need identify the main issue of the paper, and then if it's good, we begin with the subject of the paper. And also the titles should be accurate, specific, and complete. And don't use reference in the title. And the don't use a full stop or questions mark on the title, because title is not a sentences. And for example, here it's like a very long title, but I'm going to tell you that this is all the words that we need to put in the paper. First, this is tacolonite as the subject of the paper, and this has function as the microtubule stabilizer in the cancer treatment. And then we produce it using semisynthesis at mono substitution and disubstitution. So it looks like has a long title, but we need all this information to put together in one title. And the second one, for example, here is the short one. And because we only talk about the single production of this kojic acid and the revision of the flufuran, nothing less, nothing more. This is all that we're going to talk about in the paper. And then the second part is that we have the authors and affiliation. And in here, we put the title of the abstract here. And then at this part, we write the list of author. And don't forget, one has to function as a corresponding author. And normally you have it, you have to put down all the information, for example, telephone number, fax, emailing address for the corresponding author. So globally, we put the corresponding author at the end, but practically in Indonesia, we need to put the corresponding author in the front so that you get higher credits or you have higher credits. And then the third one is the abstract. Abstract should stand alone, and this is like the advertisement of our article. We need to point out what we did, and we need to highlight, emphasize the most important findings. And don't forget that abstracts should be accurate and specific. But please read the guidelines of the papers that abstract has unlimited numbers of words, limitation of words, normally around 50 to 1300 words. So there are three main types of abstract. There are three main types of abstract. The informative, the indicative abstract, the informative abstract, and also the structure abstract. The indicative abstract normally when we want to write in the review articles. And then the informative abstract, this is based on the normal articles contain the introduction, methods, result, and discussion, but we don't put it in the abstract. It's just that the abstract contains all the information or the short summary of this IMRAD part. And the last one, we have the structure abstract, and this is normally required by the journal and most of the medical journal. And then the indicative abstract normally, as I said before, here is normally used in the review paper, and you can see it here. It has the issues discussed, and also it has the main topic here. The development of major algorithms is reviewed here. So this is the main topic, and this is the issues that they discussed. And then the second one, here we have the informative abstract. This is based on the IMRAD, based on the introduction, method, result, and discussion. And here, as we see here at the first part here, so here we have what has been done, and also what are their main findings, and at the end here their conclusion. And we can see here that this part is the introduction, and also containing the method here. and then containing the result here, and at the end here they contain the discussion. But as you see here, on the introduction, we use the present tense, but in the methods here, we use the past tense. And the structure of abstract is normally follow the journals. The biomedical or the medical journals, normally they have the objectives, and then design methods, result, and then conclusion in their abstract. So it depends on which type of journal you want to publish. You have to take care of, put in your mind at the beginning when you start writing the abstract. And for example, here, this is based on the IMRAD. At the first part here, we have the introduction or background, and it was writing in the present tense. Acrylonite are unique class of microtubule stabilizer. And here we have the methodology, and the methodology of the methods was writing in the past tense. We semi-synthesized and tested. And then here we have the result, and also the discussion can come together with the conclusion at the end here. And the conclusion normally come back as a present tense. This study demonstrates that blah, blah, blah. And the other part is that we have the keywords. Keywords is very important, especially for indexing and also for searching in the Google. So trying to choose the words that Google friendly, and prevent the use the abbreviation that unfamiliar. So use the abbreviation that commonly used, for example, DNA, RNA, and so on, but prevent others that are unfamiliar. And then we come to the introduction. Here in introduction, we have to answer many problems. We have to answer many questions. For example, we have to answer what is the problem and what are the solutions and what are the main limitations. And we need to publish. We need to cite. We need to use the reference. For example, the recent review of articles of the important ones. We have to use that one to supporting our literature review. So the answer of the question is that we need to provide a sufficient background, and then we need to undertake a literature review, especially for the most important papers published recently, and also the recent reviews related to our work. And then at the end, we need to convince the reader that we know what we do, and then we know we know to solve that problem. So we can use the phrase or words here, for example, however, or remain unclear to address our work. And here is the introduction. This is the introduction. They start using present tenses here, and here is the general background. And here they use the problem investigated together with literature review. And here what they have done and why they have to do that. And if you want to say something that we already published, this is also good. So for example here, our recent study MU protein have shown that HR1 and S1 blah blah blah, suggesting common blah 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 with viral fusion protein, and then they cited the reference here. This is very important so that the reviewer and editors can see your track record. So it will help you. It will help you making the manuscript maybe get accepted, because they see how your track record, you have been published before, and it has been used by other researchers. And don't forget the introduction as a review article is not a history lesson. We cannot put too much things in the introduction. And the problem with introduction is that we put too much word. Do not turn this introduction become history lesson. The reader will not read it. And prevent using like exaggeration our result or overstating something. For example, novel, first time, or the first ever paradigm. Try to use humble expression. And here the introduction. Here we have the background, and the background we write here in the present tense. And then here some literature review about co-culture, and then here also a little bit what we will report, what solution we will offer. And then the methods, we come to the methods. The methods should be very detailed and detailed. So if you find a new method, you should write it in very details. But if you use the unknown methods or the previously published methods, then you need to cite it. You don't have to put all the published procedure in detail. So for example, here, hydrolysis tacrolimonide have been hydrolyzed with blah, 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 as previously described. You don't have to put in details. But for the new methods or new procedure, you have to write it very detailed. For example, here, how much volume, how many milligrams. So you have to put all in details. And don't forget, in the materials and methods, you need to identify all equipment and all material, this including types, vendors, serial number, and country. For example, here, unique base obtained from Sigma Aldi, St. Louis, USA. You need to put all those information in material and methods. And then in result, you need to put only the essential result in this part. The supporting info, the supporting data, you can put in the supplementary materials, or we can put in the supporting information. And do not hide data for saving it for the next publication. It may make your paper didn't look too strong. So don't hide or don't save the data. And the important one is that we need to use subheadings. We need to use subheadings. It makes it easier to review and read. For example, here we need to use the subheading so that the reader can follow our logic. The reader can follow our story. And for example, here in result and discussion, first on the subheading, subtitles, we use the chemistry. And the second part, we use the anti-cancer properties, anti-proliferative effects. And the third one, this is about the mechanism of action. So we put using subtitles, it makes it as easy to tell a clear story. And then don't forget, using past tense to describe the result. And don't forget to use graphics, table, and figure, because figure is worth 1,000 words. Figures and table are the most efficient way to present the result. So normally the reviewers and editors look to your data, look to your figure first. If you have a convincing figure, that's very good for your paper. So again, figures and tables are the most efficient way to present the result. So make the very good figures and table. And then, for example, here, and appearance does matter. So use uncrowded plots. And then if you use photograph, you have to have a scale marker professional in the corner. Use color only when necessary. And don't forget, do not include long boring tables. Long boring tables, please prevent it. And as I tell before, use color when it's necessary. For example, here, we cannot really differentiate 14 colors. So actually, this is not efficient at all, and it may weaken your article. And again, avoid long tables. Avoid long and boring tables. For example, here, you have C ratio to N, C for P until NP, and then 2003 until 5, and all with true decimals. This is a very long and boring tables, and the reviewers and editor will not, we are not going to look those long table. And then revision of the table. Try to make your table as good as possible. And normally, we put the international unit, we put the units up here on the title. So here, the table can revise as follow. Meters, we can put up here. Percent, we can put here, and like that. So this table looks nicer than before. And then discussion. Discussion is the most important part of your article. This is the chance of us to sell our article. Many of the paper get rejected because they are really having big discussion. And discussion must be based on the result, not based on your imagination. And the important one also, you need to compare the published data, the previous published article with your data. So clearly state the relationship with previous publication. For example, here we saw that blah, blah, blah. And then this was contrary to the result of others. If you have disagreement, please confront it and then try to convince the editor and reviewer that your is better and correct. So I use it clearly state the relationship with previous publication. If disagree with you, you should confront it. And then speculation is possible, but based on fact or based on data, not based on imagination. Here what they're saying, however, no explanation for this behavior was offered. Here we provide a simple explanation as follows, based on the fact, based on the data, not based on the imagination. And then again here, please don't overstate your result. Please don't overstate. Please don't exaggerate the result. Use a kindly or use a humble words. For example, our findings prove that, our findings shows that, our findings suggest, or the result show that blah blah blah. Please don't exaggerate our result. And then the conclusion. Conclusion here. The conclusion here. We need to have a clear conclusion. And this conclusion also is a part of the story of the article. And don't repeat the abstract or list the experimental result. And in the conclusion, we can also suggest future experiment or future extension. For example, here, in conclusion, our result obtained blah, blah, blah. So this is increase the knowledge contribution to the particular area. And also, this is practical significance. This is what they are going to tell us, and this is possible work or future work suggestion. So we have all of this here, and here, and for also examples here, calculation of radix, blah blah blah. And here they saw their main finding. We are able to save near half of the computation, and this is the scientific significance of the work. So in conclusion, you need to show the reviewer and the editors what is your important result, what is your significant findings. Don't let the reviewers and the editor try to find out what is the important finding by reading again in the result and discussion. So put those significant information or significant contribution in the conclusion.
Excuse me, Dr. Tony, you have 4 minutes left. Dr. Tony.
Okay, thank you. And so, and this is also another conclusion. Here we also suggest that we need to be honest, and we have said we have demonstrate the strength and limitation, and this limitation provide future works. And then you have acknowledgements here. Acknowledgement, you need to thank people who help you, the funding, reviewers, and editors. So normally, for example, here is the grant number, and this is the grant funding, the funding institution, and here the facility normally that we use, and there's people who help up in the past to get the reagents. And normally, more mistakes are found in the reference. And this is one of the most annoying problems and cause great headaches. So we always make this mistake in the reference. But remember that cite the main scientific publication only. And don't put too much references also. And remember, please avoid excessive self-citation. Please avoid excessive self-citation also in the reference. Okay? And then cover letter. And then we need also to suggest the reviewers, normally minimal 3 reviewers and the maximum 6. And don't ask the tips about don't ask the tips or recipe how being successful in publishing in international journal. No recipe, no tips. It's only a hard work, a matter of dedication, and just try to write and write. No recipe. And read a lot. If you read a lot, then you can write a lot. If you don't read your journal, then you will not publish. So the path to writing is to read the excellent writers. You need to read first and then start writing. And normally use the best paper in your field as a template. Choose one best paper. and then decided the target journal. So for us that having not English, have not good in English, so you can try write manuscript in Bahasa, but please remember, use the short sentences, not the long sentences. And you can translate it with the translator and checking with the grammar checker, and you can also use the editing and proofreading. And like this opportunity, it's also good to have friends from native speaker who can help us in the fast editing. So there are many references of how to publish an international journal, but I select here from the Elsevier Art of Workshop template, and also from Anthony Newman from Elsevier Amsterdam, has the title "How to Get Your Article Published from Title to Reference" in Birmingham 2010. And the last one, I want to say something. They say that "Buta kafat lapidam non viset sete cadendo." In Indonesia, this is saying like tetesan-tetesan air dapat melubangi batu karang, bukan karena kekuatan, tapi karena keseringannya. So the more we write, the more frequently we write, the more chances we get our article getting published in the international journal. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the next session. So thank you very much, Dr. Yosef, for the time.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tony Ola. It's a very comprehensive presentation. Dr. Tony have presented us with a very detailed technical strategies, how to write and to publish articles in international journals. We only have 30 minutes, maybe not enough, but I think we will later share the presentation for all the participants, so we can learn more about how to write the proposal and also how to write the recent findings to publish it in international journals. Ladies and gentlemen, we already have about 1 hour. We have already got very outstanding presentation from Dr. Simon Moss. Dr. Simon has provided us with a lot of information about how to write a good and persuasive research proposal, and also a bit about how to publish articles in journals. And he will provide us with the link on how to make a good writing and also how to publish our articles in international journals. And also Dr. Tony have provided us with a comprehensive information about how to make a good writing for publication in reputable international journals. We still have 30 minutes for discussion. I believe that there may be many issues that need to be questioned or further explored through discussion with Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony. So we still have 30 minutes before we finish our webinar this afternoon. So ladies and gentlemen, I will open the next 30 minutes for discussion with the two keynote speakers today, Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony. So please put your question on the chat box, and we will read it and we'll get response from Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony. So let's start with the first question. Dr. Simon, maybe you can monitor it from the chat box. There's a question from the above, from Ibu Maria Lobo. Dr. Simon, don't to be original in your research. It is very interesting because researchers are striving for originality in their research. What is your idea on that? And I think this question also related with a question from Dr. Maxine DE. His comments like this: I am very interested in the material presented by Dr. Simon, how to strategies to find suitable problems in proposal writing and to get funding, and all. Sorry, that's from Nicholas Nick, and also from Maxine DE. It's related to question from Ibu Maria Lobo. So what is the general criteria, if I call it minimal originality standard, and don't to be original, and I define as minimal standard of originality? Maybe Dr. Simon, you can comment first on these two questions because they are related one to another. So please, Dr. Simon.
Yes, certainly. So you're right. I mean, obviously, research is supposed to be original to some degree. The problem is if research is too original, if it differs too much from past studies, then funding bodies will not be as convinced that it may be effective. So they'll often reject the research. My sense of thing is to provide some sense of how original a study should be. And it varies across different disciplines. But if it's a quantitative study, I think your study should be similar to another study, but maybe differ on sort of 2 or 3 variables. So in other words, if it's like another study, but there's another 1 or 2 independent variables, or 1 or 2 mediators or moderators, if you understand that terminology, then that to me is sufficient originality. Now, it's not just the adding of a variable 2 that makes an original. Hopefully you would add a variable or 2, and then that would create a new insight, maybe a new discovery of the causes of a problem or the consequences of a problem or something like that. So it would have to make sense, but anything that differs from, say, 2 or so variables from another study, I think is usually sufficiently original. It's in the sense that it's similar enough to past research that the funding body will be confident that it might be effective, but different enough that it's still a new insight about an existing issue.
Thank you, Dr. Simon, for a very clear presentation, and I hope that it's clear to Ibu Maria and also Dr. Maxi. And also still one question from Ibu Maria. Does CDU provide services for academic writing training for higher degree research international students?
Yes, and I should mention that if you want to study in really almost any Australian university, including CDU, there's usually a particular service for all international PhD students, to help them with their writing skills, and even to sometimes help them edit the research, their thesis towards the end. So there's certainly those services available, and I would say at the majority of Australian universities.
Okay, thank you very much. So all the participants, I think so what Dr. Simon have said, that if you are interested in pursuing high degree study by research in Australia, I think most Australian university will provide you with assistance in how to write a good proposal for that. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that's a very invaluable information from Dr. Simon. Thank you, Dr. Simon. Okay, move to next question. I think it's still from Dr. related to the first question from Dr. Maria Lobo. So Dr. Simon, please, can you elaborate more on persuasive research proposal for high degree research application? If you can explain a bit more about that, Dr. Simon.
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to think where was that one? I think I missed that one. Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
So this is from Maria, Dr. Maria. Please elaborate more on persuasive research proposal for high degree research application. Yeah, that's a question from Maria.
Yeah, so I suppose the question is, what are the key features of a research proposal that the universities will perceive as persuasive? And usually they're looking, I mean, one of the issues they often find that was discussed is that they're often concerned that the candidate has not conducted enough of a literature review. So their main concern is often that they don't know the literature well enough. So it's very important to include many citations, as really at least one reference or 2 references for almost every sentence, because that tends to be quite convincing. I should also mention for this question, but also the next question, I do have another section on that website that I mentioned that's much more about how to attract grants and funding, and some of the key features and criteria that are useful. And it's slightly different, of course, because when you're writing a research proposal, you're just writing about yourself, where with its funding application, you're often writing about the whole team. And so there's a whole series of recommendations on how to attract funding for, not just as for PhDs, but for grants in general. So for example, one suggestion is that, when you're working in a team of researchers, it's very important that that team had conducted research together before. Even if they've just written a small paper that they've placed on the website, it doesn't even have to be a good paper, but they really want to see that you've worked together as a team. And there's a whole series of there's probably about 20 other criteria that are mentioned in this paper that could be quite useful for grant applications as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simon, for a very great explanation about high degree research study, high degree study by research application in Australia. And also, I think your last explanation is related to question from Dr. Nicholas Nick. Dr. Nicholas Nick is from Universitas Timor. It's about 200 kilometers from here. NU State University in East Nusa Tenggara, Dr. Simon. So I think his question is how the strategy is to find suitable problems in proposal writing and to get funding. I think he is more emphasizing on how to find a good problems that can make a persuasive proposal.
Yes, that's an interesting issue. I think it's probably more important, really, to find the problems that interest you and then to show how those problems are related to the funding body. So, my sense of things is if you really find a problem that is interesting to you and relevant to your research and you read about it and you really know about it, then you'll be able to show how it's relevant to so many other funding bodies. So rather than trying to necessarily identify problems that funding bodies tend to like, I think you should utilize some of the strategies I mentioned before to identify the problems that you really want to solve, the problems that utilize your skills and interests and knowledge, because once you really understand that problem very well, you'll be able to write why it's relevant to a whole range of other issues.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation, Dr. Simon. Dr. Nick from UNIMOR, I hope it is very clear for you and also for other participants that may have a similar question. So it's very strategic to find the problems that can persuade the funding support. So reasonable for that to get them convinced to support your research proposal. Okay, I think a question from participant to Dr. Simon. Maybe at the moment we just listen for that, and then we move to question to Dr. Tony Ola. This is from Mr. David Tembar. Dr. Tony, how do you construct your paper when your experimental results are completely different from what you expected or your hypothesis? To what extent we can recreate the logic? Please, Dr. Tony.
So, Mr. David, this is a very good question. And as a scientist, as a researcher or PhD student or a postdoc, normally we have these problems. Sometimes you want to get this product, but then you get another product. But I'm going to tell you, but this is very good. I have one experience when I was in JCU. I met a postdoc from Monash University. He works in inorganic chemistry, but he tried to synthesize these compounds, but then he got something else. And this the side products that he get was the very important ones. And then he needs to go back for doing the literature review relating to what we get. And then by this, you can recreate again your logic. So again, try to look back, enhancing our literature review relating to the result that completely different with our hypothesis. Maybe we miss something, or maybe we miss something, or maybe there is another opportunity that we have two products or two results in one type of experiments. And these friends from JCU, actually, he can publish in a very good journal by ACS as American Chemical Society papers. And I also have one experience that I try to synthesize these target compounds, but then somehow it gets something else. And this is led us to find to have a new things, and then we make the pattern from this result, which was completely different than what we expect. So this is not a disaster, but actually something's good that you need to dig. You need to you need to strengthen your literature review or your or background. Try to find something. Try to find the good paper that's supporting your last research or your current research. So this is good, not bad, but I think just try and deepen your literature review to support the result. So I think only that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Toniola. I think a very clear explanation from Dr. Tony to Mr. Tambaru. Dr. David Tambaru is, I think, to my knowledge, he is a PhD candidate in Australia. Maybe what explanation from Dr. Tony can help you, maybe if it's related to your problem, if it's related to your research progress so far, hopefully it can help you. Dr. Tony, I have one question for you while waiting for a question from other participants.
Thank you.
You mentioned in your presentation that if you have a good result, don't hide the result. Just put them all in your research article. But my question is like, if you have you have a very solid data, and if you are able to divide it into two research paper that you can put in Q3 journals rather than in only one paper in Q1 journals, what do you think?
Yeah, so that's different perspective. Like for us, like we're trying to get the credits as we're trying to get more credits by publishing something. But some people or some researchers, they have the point that, oh, I want to go to higher impact factor journal or the most prestigious one. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. The more data you include in your paper, that means you put more technology and more work on that, and this is very strong for your paper. But you can divide into two papers. That's also good as long as the logic behind those dividing into two papers is fine. For example, you have to result. Okay, this type of class, this type of result. First group you put in another result in another paper, and the second one also in the second group you put in another paper. That's also possible. So it depends on how you are going to what is the benefits of this publication.
Okay.
So this is if for your self-prestige, and that means you need to go first for the high impact factor journal first or the prestigious one first. But if you would like to have to increase your number of publications, then it's better to divide it. So I think both ways can be done. It depends on what benefits we want from that publication. Thank you, Dr. Yosef.
So either one you can choose depending on what is your intention to do the publication, whether for your self prestige or maybe just to meet the academic requirement. Like here in Undana, we are required to have publication every semester for remuneration. You know that. And then if you have to wait to publish in Q1 journal, then you have to wait for 2 years, and you don't get remuneration. You know that. So it's better to put down to put down your focus, and then you can meet the standard for university requirement. So it's very critical to make a consideration about that.
That's true. That's true, Prof. That's true, Dr. Yosef. So if I have a collaboration with other, for example, in my side, I have a collaboration with my friends in USA, and they are going to. They just want we combine them all in one papers and make it go to the medicinal chemistry, the good journal. So but when I work by myself, I tend to divide it into several papers for the the research grant responsibility, and also for like you saying for the remuneration. So it depends, Dr. Yosef.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tony. We still have time. Just while waiting for other questions to Dr. Simon or Dr. Toniola. My question is to Dr. Simon. I just have a new publication record. You have very outstanding record in publication. I noticed you have in the last few weeks you have about 96 articles in Scopus Index journals with Scopus it's in S26. That's amazing. I just wonder, how can you manage your time, your energy to do that? We want to learn from you, Simon.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a magic secret. Probably the only one I can think of off the top of my head is more really to find that one skill that you work on for a long time that other researchers can value, so you can really fit into other teams. Because I think that when people develop their research career, they very much think about their own research interests. But I think most of the opportunities are really with working with other people. So you're just developing that one skill, that one theory or technique or perspective that you really know very well that differs from other colleagues. I think is where most of the opportunities lie, and it becomes much more efficient to publish with other people this way, I think. I'd like to know your opinion, actually.
Yeah, yes, I think the collaboration is important. If we work alone, then it is impossible
Yes.
to do that. Am I right, Dr. Simon?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I believe.
cooperate. Yeah, and we have to do that with CDU in the future, and also
I
other
hope so.
in Australia. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we still have 5 minutes for discussion with our outstanding keynote speaker. Please, if you still have any question or comment, please, we still have 5 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Simon and Dr. Toniola, if we still have a few minutes, but we still have taking photo together and also closing. So I think the discussion session we stop for now on, and then thank you very much for questions from participants, and also our high appreciation to Dr. Simon and Dr. Toniola for responding uh, to the participant. It's very invaluable information that you have provided us either during the presentation and also during discussion. It's very useful for us, all the participants, whether those who are going to apply for high degree by risk application in the future, and also for the academician in developing their academic career, and also to attract uh, funding support from various sources. I think it's very great opportunity for us to have Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony Oro today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's summarize all the presentation that we have attended this afternoon. Maybe what I'm going to share is not all representing what all have been presented by Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony, but let me put some conclusion point from the two presentations about how to write research proposal and how to publish it in international journals. So one key statement, I took it from the presentation from Dr. Tony. 3 necessary steps in useful approach: to begin it, to end it, and to publish it. So research and publication, it has to be connected together. If you have a good research, you have to publish it to make it useful for enhancing the knowledge, and also maybe can be used by community. So you have to begin it, to end it, and to publish it. And to write a research proposal, as presented by Dr. Simon, that you have to develop a research question. You have to list, plan, and identify the problems by going to the website, pick maybe 50 papers, and also take 5 best, and then you reduce into the 2 or 3 best one, and you can use it to develop your research question. And then you can write your proposal while learning. So writing proposal or writing article is doing by learning. You have to write, and to write. So you can start with outline the problem you want to address, and also you have to determine how can you study, resolve the problem, and how to order your research idea. It has been covered by Dr. Simon and Dr. Tony. And you have to summarize the methodology and methods. You have to include the most advanced methods I think we are very glad to hear that Dr. Simon has presented us with many advanced method in qualitative research methodology, like using Twitter, etc., etc. And also you have to discuss logistic, and after that you have to conduct the research and publish the research finding. And Dr. Tony present us more focusing on how to publish our research findings in international journal articles. So there are various reasons for people to publish their research findings. For reason that for advanced career, for personal prestige, to gain funding, and to get final reward, etc., etc. And tips for good writing, I think it's very critical for us, where English is not our first language, but English is our second language. We have to put more careful in this regard. And we are happy that Dr. Simon will provide us with website dealing with manual on how to write good proposal and good articles. So we have to have one idea in one paragraph. You have to write broad, short sentences. You have to use short words. And you have also to pay attention to text layout, length of article. It's depending on the journal. You have to use good language. If you talk about international publication, then usually you have to use English. So if you need to consult with a native English speaker, then you have to do it. Otherwise, your writing will be rejected by reputable journals. And also the writing order. You have to write backwards. Start from methods and result, and then you come to introduction and discussion, and then title and abstract at the end. But different from that, the article order has to follow IMRAT method. Introduction, method, result, and discussion. And then after that, you have to put the acknowledgement, funding, and also people who help you in doing the research. And after that, you have to make a cover letter if you want to send your article to a journal, and then you submit your article to the journal. So that's all the summary of our presentation from our great two speakers today. More or less, I think you will learn it more from materials, presentation material that will be provided to you, and also websites that Dr. Simon will give it to us. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all our webinar session this afternoon about how to write a persuasive research proposal for high degree by research application and how to publish international journal articles. And I am, as a moderator, would like to say thank you very much to our two outstanding speakers, Dr. Simon Moss and Dr. Tony Ola, for your great presentation, and also all the participants who have spent about 1 hour, 2 hours to join this presentation, and all the committee from International Relations Office of Universitas Nusa Cendana. Thank you for all your presentation, your participation in this web seminar, and I will give back the time to our Master of Ceremony, Ms. Ibu Reni. Time is yours, Ibu Reni. I give it back to you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yosef. It's very great, and you moderated the session very well. And again, there are so many chats in the box saying thank you very much to Dr. Simon Moss and Dr. Antonius Ola for your great presentation and outstanding explanation, given a very insightful thought for all of us this afternoon session. And before we end this webinar today, I would like to remind a couple of things. The first, we are going to issue e-certificate to all of you, and this is a free of charge. So please don't forget to fill in the participation link given in the chat box. And a couple of you have asked us the presentation material. I've shared it to you in the chat box, so please download it from there. And if you can, then you can probably text us or email us and then we can send it to your email address. And just for your information, in the around October, the Charles Darwin University is going to hold an information session for those who are interested in applying for doctoral program for 2021 or 2022 intake. And of course, the session will be conducted virtually via Zoom. And it will discuss about what are the requirements, what are the documents needed, and how are the steps to apply for PhD. So please check our social media later, because we are going to announce you about this webinar. The international office as well are going to conduct 2 workshops in coming month. And the first one is about how to teach Indonesian to the non-native speakers. So this is very interesting topic, because you're as Indonesian speaker, how do you teach Indonesian to the non-native speakers? And then we are going to also conduct summer course. This is an online workshop about photography. If you're interested about photography, then please also check our social media later, because we're gonna post about this workshop. And in a minute, we are going to do a screenshot. And then I would like to ask everyone to turn on your video. We have so many participants, Dr. Moss and Dr. Ola. Thank you very much. We have like 452 participants today, and this is the most number we have so far for our webinar. So well done to you, and also well done to Pa Joseph for moderating us. Everyone stay online until now, and we have 133 participants still. So we're gonna have it 6 times, because we have six slides to do. I'm going to lead it 1, 2, 3, and everyone can give you a big smile on a camera. Okay. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, one more for a second for the second slide. 1, 2, 3. And for third one, 1, 2, 3. The fourth one, 1, 2, 3. The fifth one, 1, 2, 3. And the sixth one, the last one, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think everyone is on our screenshot today. And I would like to, again, on behalf of the committee, I would like again to thank Dr. Simon Moss and Dr. Antonius Ola for your great presentation and your time to share your knowledge, your expertise, and also your experience about how to write international journal, and also how to publish in international journals. And I would like to thank Dr. Joseph Seranmau. Thank you very much, Pa. You handled the session very well, and you being such a very great moderator to all of us this afternoon. And I would like to thank Ibu Chita and the representatives from Charles Darwin University for attending the session today. Thank you, Ibu Chita. Thank you also for helping facilitate the session. And I would like to thank the participants who engaged actively this afternoon and stay until now. We have 130 participants left now. And I would like to give special thanks to Ibu Maria Lobo as the head of International Relations Office Undana. Thank you very much, Ibu, for your full support for all of us, and the committee who worked really hard behind the screen, Pak Kor, Bu Dewi, Nonalia, and also special thanks to Pak Reynold Modok from LP3M Undana for hosting all of us this afternoon. Thank you very much, Pak, for being so patient with our requirements. And we apologize for any inconveniences. And I hope to see everyone again in our next webinar. And I hope we can run future collaboration together. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy in this pandemic. Thank you.